Before this lesson starts, a quick reminder that this lesson is intended for a keyboard with a numpad attached to it. If you are using a laptop keyboard, you will have to reconfigure your keys for it to work. So in order to do so, you'll have to go into Mapster32, this file here, and scroll all the way to the bottom. The bottom of this notepad document, it will explain how to reconfigure your keys so that you're able to use Mapster with a laptop keyboard or a keyboard that just doesn't have a numpad attached to it. And here it will explain how to remap, and you remap in this section here. So you type in the keys that you what keys you want to remap. With that out of the way, let's begin. Okay, so it looks a bit very basic when you look at it, but it's very simple. You can actually zoom in and out of your screen with this scroll, with the scroll mouse button, or you can use A and Z. So A and Z. If you want to move around your screen, you hold down your right mouse button, hold it down, and you can actually move around. So you'll notice that there is a grid. The grid is actually very important. You can actually change grid sizes by pressing G on your keyboard. There are 9 different grid sizes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 and 8 seem to be the same for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. And then 10 basically turns the grid off. So in building, it's, as far as I can tell, it's good to build with grid 1, which is the biggest, and grid 2. Now, I'm going to give you, going to tell you how you can load, save, and create new maps. So when you want to load a map, or make a new map, you press escape. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see it says new, load, save, save as, test, undo, redo, and quit. Where you see the beginning of each letter or a capitalized letter in brackets, that is how you control. So if you want a new map, you press N. If you want to load a map, you press L. And so forth and so forth. S for save, A for save as, test for T for test map. What we're going to do is load up the grid example, actually. That would be a good idea. So what you want to do is press L, and you'll come to this screen. Now this is where you can see all the maps. You can also look into the AMC file maps as well. You navigate by using the arrow keys, up, down, left, and right. And if you move down to the grid size example that I've given, just press enter. So, now this is a very basic map I created. And if you put your arrow inside the white box and then press numpad enter. I'm hoping you have a numpad enter. You should go into 3D mode. You can actually move your camera around by again holding the right mouse button, and you can actually look around by moving the mouse. But these are the examples of the grid sizes in 3D mode. Now if you want to move around in 3D mode, you on the left mouse button, you hold it down, and you can push back, forward, left, or right. It's kind of weird movement to get used to. But yeah, you can move around, and you can see that you can actually move through these two, grid 1 and grid 2, which is the smallest. You can actually get through that, but you can't get through grid 3, 4, and etc. as it gets smaller and smaller. But yeah, they're a nice visual aid to know how big you want a gap if you're making a doorway or a crawl space for someone to crawl into. And if you press enter, numpad enter again, you'll be back in 2D mode. So if you could do that, that'd be great. And we're going to load up the first example map for you. This is the room I want you guys to try and build. So we want to press escape again, and we want to press L for load. And we want to open up the room example. So use the arrow keys for room example, and press enter. Okay, so with that open, if you want to press, make sure your arrow's inside again, the white box, and then press numpad enter. This is what I will be getting you guys to build this evening. Again, holding down the right mouse button, and you can move your mouse, you can actually look around it. It's a very basic room, and a table. As Sang said, you can use the arrow buttons to move around. It's not precise because left and right makes you turn like this, whereas this way, you can just do this. There is another thing you can do. If you hold both mouse buttons, left and right at the same time, you can change your heights. If you press caps locks, you will notice at the bottom left of your screen, it will say like lock free, gravity, or lock sector. If you're high in the air like this or moving around, you want to know your character height in game, press the caps lock button and you will drop down to the floor, and this is the height your character will be looking at things. It's a great way to gauge whether how high or how low you want something. So this is how high the table is to a person looking in game. But this is the room that we're going to build, so we're going to press enter to leave this room, and we are going to make a new map. So, like loading, you press escape, and for a new map you press N, and if you says are you sure you want to start a new board, it's Y for yes and N for no. We want to press Y, and it'll take us to a brand new slate. So, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to build a room. Very simple. We're going to put it on grid size 1, which is the biggest grid. What you want to do to start building is place your crosshair where you want to start, and then press space. You'll put a point down, a vertex point. That's what it's called. And you'll notice that there's a white line following you. This white line is basically a wall. Now, you make the wall as long as you like. Not too long. If it goes blue, then that's far, far too long and it breaks the game, so don't do that. So just making it a reasonable size. We're making a reasonable size room. If you press space again, you'll put another point. This white line now is a wall. Okay? But it's useless until you make a full room. So we're gonna put a few more spaces and connect it until it's a square. So space, and then connect it right back to the very first one and press space. You'll notice that every time you put a vertex point, it will make a point to the closest, it will snap to the grid basically. Press square and you'll notice all the numbers disappear and you have made your first room. If you want to check how the room looks, put your crosshair or your white arrow inside it and press numpad enter. And this is a basic room. So, to change the vertexes and to make the room smaller or bigger, go to one of the vertex points and hold the left mouse button and just drag it around. And you can change the size of the room. As long as you're holding it, you can move it around. Like so. I've made the room smaller. Note that sometimes this will change, it might stretch or shrink a texture on the wall, depending on how many vertexes you have. So, but I will teach you about inserting other more vertexes onto a already existing wall in a minute. In 3D mode, you can manipulate the room very easily. So, like you said, it's very small. You want to make it bigger. No problem. Point your crosshair onto the ceiling. Okay? We're going to raise this up a little bit. So, and to do that, you need to press page up, which will higher it, or page down, which will lower it. Now, be careful, because if you're too close to something and you keep pressing up, it will page up anything that's kind of off your crosshair. It's kind of hard to describe unless something else is there. But what you can do to prevent any mishaps is to hold down the left mouse button. So hold down the left mouse button till it says lock, and then press page up. This will only target the thing that you've already held on to and won't shift anything else that might fall into your crosshair.
Pretty useful when you got a room full of sprites and junk.
Yes, if you have a room full of sprites and other walls and sectors, it can get a bit complicated. This is it's good to start learning the lock system early. So we're going to make this a reasonable height. Okay. You can do the same for the floor as well. So you can raise your camera up by holding both mouse buttons and lifting yourself. You can look down, lock the bottom, and then press page down, and you can lower the floor. I'll look at the far wall so you can see what I'm doing. You can lower it or higher it. Now, another thing you can do while I'm thinking about it is changing the brightness and dimness of a room or a wall. Each wall has its own individual texture. And I'll show you what I mean. You can, on the numpad, you can use plus or minus to change how dark or how bright something is. Or if your mouse has a scroll wheel, you can do it via your mouse scroll wheel. And you'll notice at the bottom left side of your screen, there'll be some green text and it'll say the shade number. So if it's minus shade, it's brighter. If it's plus shade, it's darker. Not sure why it's in reverse, but that's how it works in here. Now, here's the fun part. We're going to put a texture on the wall. So let's do the floor first. I want you to all to point your crosshair at the floor, and I want you to press V. You'll come to the first page. This shows you all the textures that you have been using so far. You want to press V again, and suddenly you have all the textures in the game. These are the textures, and you can use the mouse scroll to look up and down. You can hold down the right mouse button and move the mouse up and down, and it will go really fast for all the textures. Now, there's some little handy things to know. Each of these textures has a number. So at the bottom left of the screen, you'll see it says tile and then a number. So this one is tile 0, this one was tile 1, this one is tile 172. Now, if you know a tile number, you can easily find it by pressing G. G, for example, for go to. Okay? And I'm texturing the floor, I believe. So what you can do is then, when you press G, on the top left of your screen, it'll say go to tile. There will be a 0 and a bleeping underscore. At this point, you can type in a tile number. So I'm going to type in, for me, because I already wrote down all the tile numbers, I can type in tile 17321. Oops. And if you press enter, just regular enter, you will be taken to that specific tile, which is, for me, is this nice little red tile down here. Let's move the screen up so you can see it. You press the left mouse button to enter, to select it. And you'll notice on the left side of your screen, if I aim down, it will show you the texture that you've used. And the one above it, it says clipboard, that's the previous texture. What you can do now is press tab on by looking at the texture you've just used, press tab. You'll notice now, if I lift up the screen so you can see it, it will have the texture saved on your clipboard. At this point, you can paste it onto other walls or ceilings. So for example, if I look at this wall here and press enter, I can put the exact same texture on it. You can do this for all the walls and make the whole place look like carpet. Yay! But let's not do that. I'm going to press undo. There we go. And you can use Control Z to undo. Not always a good thing because in some cases it can break, but it seems to work fine for our Mapster. It works fine for me anyway. But yeah, that's the floor. Let's color in the walls as well and ceiling. So I'm going to use for the wall, I'll give you a texture number. So I'm going to go to texture 14248. That's 14248. That'll take me to this wall texture. And press enter. Now you'll see that my wall texture is not aligned very well. Either I've made the scaling tool or whatnot. But it's a good way to show you how to resize the texture. So, on a wall, it is much easier to resize a texture than it is a ceiling or a floor. So we want to look at this texture. And on your numpad, if you press 8, 2, 4, or 6, you will notice that it will change size. So 8 will make it go down, 2 will make it smaller, 4 will make it go wider horizontally, and 6 will make it shrink. You can also change the alignment by holding shift and then pressing the left mouse button and holding it, and you moving your mouse, you can change. Let me move back a bit so you can see what I'm doing. You can change where it's being aligned to. I'm going to align this. Actually, I'm going to make my ceiling smaller. There we go. When you have textures, you can also change their color or change their palette. It's fine to do this on a wall, but if you do this on the floor, it will also change your character palette when you're in game. So you notice when you're on a blue floor, sometimes your character's hands will turn blue. For example, Sang's hands or whatever, they would change to a blue color because it's following the palette that's been put on. I will show you an example of palettes. So, look at the wall with your crosshair. Hold down the right Alt button and then press P. And you'll see at the top left of your screen, it'll say wall pal in white text. If you put in a number, for example 1, you'll notice that it will change colors. You can press backspace to delete and just put in different numbers. They will all be different. So it goes beyond to 100, I believe, but yes. So that's PAL 10, 12. 12 is the one I'm using. You don't have a palette listing, but if you're like me and you don't mind going and seeing all the funny colors, you can literally go for every single one. The good thing is that once you've had that, you can, like I explained, you can put it on your clipboard by pressing Tab and then pressing Enter and pasting it on somewhere else, which saves time, like so. Now the last thing we're going to do is the ceiling. And the ceiling should be pretty simple. But again, if you remember how, you press V and press V again. And you'll get access to all your palettes. I used for my ceiling 17891. That's 17891. And I'm down to the Asian textures, and I'm using this wood thing, this wood texture, this wood floor texture. Another thing you can do, if you feel that the wood grain, for example like this, is going the wrong way, you can press F and it'll flip. This can be done on all things. So I can make the wallpaper upside down. The other fun part is putting in sprites. So, sprites are simple. They're great for decoration, great for putting buttons in, and basically is how everything is built with, sort of, in a map. Aside from the walls and textures, of course, but sprites for me are very important. Now, if you want to put a sprite in the room, look where you want to place a sprite and then press S for Sierra for a sprite. You'll notice that the original basic texture will appear. And like any other sprite, it will follow you around. Yay! Now we want to change that sprite, and it's just like texturing a wall, you press V on it. Exactly the same way you press V again, and you'll have access to all your textures. Hell, you can put a wall. You can put a wall as a sprite if you like. I'm not going to do that, but you can do. You can put anything as a sprite. I could put this spaceman as a sprite. I've never seen this in the AMC, but yes. Funky. These are switches. You can put switches, you can put TVs. But I'm going to put a vase down, or a vase. So for the vase, we're going to use texture 765. 765. And should take me to this nice little vase here. There we go. A vase. Now, if you jump out of 3D mode, if you remember that's the numlock enter, you'll notice that your sprite is a little purple. It's a little purple icon, this thing here. Hopefully you can all see this. If you hold left mouse, you can actually move the sprite around. It will lock onto the nearest corner. If you want to be super precise about placing it, you can press G a couple of times and you can change your grid size.
Or you can press L and unlock the grid.
Or you can press L and unlock the grid. Like so. But I usually stick to grid sizes because it's helpful for spacing. Let's put the vase on the corner of the room for now. Now, there are a couple of things you can do in 3D mode to a sprite. Much like the textures and the walls, you can make it darker and brighter with your scroll mouse or numpad plus or minus, which is all fun. You can also change its size. Much like the wall, which I taught you where you can, manipulate it with the numlock buttons 8, 6, 4, and 2. Put that back to normal. You can do that with a sprite as well. So you can make it wider, thinner, taller, or small, super tiny vase. I'm going to make it quite big though. And again, you can also change the PAL of the sprite, much like the textures, which was right Alt and P, and I can make it be funky colors, like so. Whee! And there's one more thing you can do. You can move the sprite in 3D mode. So, if you look at it with your crosshair, and hold down left shift, and then hold down left mouse, you can move your sprite like this. But yeah. It's not very accurate, but if you do want to move things around while you need to do things and move something so you can get to behind it, you can put it back. And so, to move it up and down, so you can actually change the height of the sprite, hold onto it, hold the left mouse button, because it's very good to learn to lock onto objects before you, so you don't mess it up. Press page up or page down, and you can do this. You can make a floating vase. Yay. If you just press the del button, it should delete it. You can also do that in, let me undo that. You can also do that in 2D mode. So you can hover over it and then press del, and it should disappear. So that is the manipulation of a sprite, the texturing, walls, and ceilings. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is teach you how to put in a table in this room. So let's jump back out into 2D mode. So numpad enter. So you're back out here. And we're going to use the biggest grid size. So grid size 1. There we go. I'm going to teach you about child sectors. Or inner loops. I think that's the same thing, but child sectors. So think of the white box as a mother sector. It's very important to learn this because if it will prevent you from breaking the game later on. But think of this little square as a mother. Now you want to give it a little child sector. Now, first of all, we do the same as we did before. We put some vertices down, and we're going to make a square. You can make it as big or as small as you like. So it's a white box right now. Now I'm going to show you something. Right now, this is a kind of island on its own. If you go into 3D mode, you'll notice that it's now made a block in the center of the room. It's copied over the textures that are already existing, but it's an impassable wall. These are very good if you want to, put in little areas like this, or if you want to add a wall or two. But that's not what we're doing today. So, now we're going to make this into a child sector. So I want you to hover your crosshair over a part of the white square. And if I remember correctly, you press right Alt and then S. Once you've done that, your square should turn red. Now this is a child sector. Now if you go into 3D mode, you'll notice the square is gone. Well, the walls are gone. it's actually still here. If you change the brightness of that particular square, you'll see that it's still there. It's just become part of the floor now. If you can't see it and you've made a sector, it's always good just to try to dim it, and you'll notice that it'll have it will keep its own texture. Yes, we're gonna hover over our child sector. We're gonna hold down the left mouse button and we're gonna press page up, and you'll notice it can rise and lower, up and down. Now, this can be done to the ceiling as well. So if you didn't want to have this here and you just wanted something on the ceiling, if you look up and lock, you can just manipulate the ceiling part, which is pretty neat. But today we are making a table, so I'm going to put you back up there, mister. Nice and flat. And we're going to bring this up to a reasonable amount. If you want to know how tall or high it is compared to the character in game, again, press caps lock and you'll see how tall it is. From here you can lower it to make it higher or lower it to suit your height. A little bit higher. There we go. Now it doesn't look like a table right now, does it? Just like before, press V. We're gonna put a texture on it so it looks like a table. I'm gonna give you the table texture. So for the legs, press V again. So we're back into here. The palette's still on 12. That's fine. We'll change it back. So back into the texture page. We're gonna press G for go to, and we're gonna put in texture 9595. Where are you? There you are. And you're going to come to this texture next to the green tea bottle, funnily enough. And we're going to put that on. You'll notice that it's a bit big. It is a bit big, so we're going to manipulate that with the numpad numbers so it actually fits. There we go. That's pretty good. Used to be a bit smaller, so there we go. So you can just move the numpad using 8 and 2 to make it taller or smaller, and 6 and 4 to make it wider or smaller. Probably a little bit. There we go. So it should look like that. Now you want to put that on your clipboard with Tab. Tab makes you copy things. And you want to paste it onto this bit. But you'll notice that it's also it's the same size as this texture. So we're going to have to make that longer. So just press 4. I've made the table a bit too long. Just like before, you can come out into 2D mode and you can manipulate it until it's smaller. And a reasonable size. I'm probably going to put it like that. How did that look? I'm on the wrong side now. There we go. There we go. It's not too stretched out. That's not too bad. I've made this room bigger than the one I did an example, but it's fine. So we want to copy and paste that to this side. And then we want to copy this one to its counterpart. So we copy and paste. So there you go. You got the legs of your table. Of your fake table. Now we want to put a top on it. So we're going to texture it again. Go to pressing G, texture 19206. That is 19206. And that's the wrong wood texture, but never mind, it doesn't matter. Probably use a slightly brighter one though, and then make it darker. There we go. So use the texture next to it, so 19207. And then you can make it darker using the scroll wheel. And then it should look like that. Again, child sectors can be manipulated just like white sectors. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add on some vertices to an already existing wall. We're going to be making a window. So, on the top wall, I want you to, with the same line as the table, press the insert button. And you'll know another vertice point will appear. Like so. Okay. And then I want you to do it again on the other side here, like this. So now we have two vertices. New vertex, sorry, not vertices, vertex. If you go back in 3D mode, wrong wall, you'll note that now it's its own wall. You can shade it, texture it, change it, do whatever you like, and it will be separate from the others. If you have created too many vertexes or you just want to get rid of one, what you can do is hold the left mouse button on the vertex you want to get rid of, so you can drag it around, and drag it to the closest vertex next to it. That should combine it and delete it. And then it's gone. Now we're going to add on a sector. And the reason why I've added these 2 points, I will explain as I go along. So, from the vertices, pick one of them and press space on it. You hit your little white line that follows you. Now we're going to make a little square like before and hit back on the other vertex that you made. Sorry, I keep calling it vertices. You'll note that there will still be a little white line. That's because it's not connected. Now the reason why I made insert points is because if you want to connect a sector onto another sector, that's what these white boxes are called, you have to kind of go over a line and connect back up to a vertex. So if I do that, you'll notice that this white line's become a red line. If you go back into 3D mode, you'll note that suddenly we have a room. We have an extra space. I'm going to make this into our window. In fact, I've made it too thick, so I'm going to go out, change the grid size, and bring it in a little bit. You can manipulate just like before by holding the left mouse button and moving it around. Whee! Okay. So I'm making it a bit smaller because I'm making a window. You can move the vertices with the red line as well. Never make it cross over like this. That will break it. I'll show you what that looks like.
No.
Yeah, it's a bit... you can see that the textures are messing up and being weird. Don't do that. That is bad. We'll put it back to normal. Cool. Now, like I've showed before, these sectors, these extra sectors, can be moved up and down. So we're going to make a little window. We're going to move this up, and we're going to move this down. And we have a little space. I've made this too wide, haven't I? Well, we'll make it a very wide window. Why not? Again, you can shrink it. So you can move points individually, like so, to make it smaller. Or you can hold the left mouse button and drag a square across, and you'll notice that these are now highlighted. You can now move both these vertexes. Whee! Just gonna make it a little bit smaller though. Half size. There we go. So 4x4. 4x4? 4 and 4. So, tiny window. Doesn't look much like a window though, does it? So we're going to change the textures around so it looks more like a window. And as you can see, the texture here is not lined up with the texture next to it. It's misaligned. So what we want to do, what you can do is hold the left shift button and the left mouse button. You can pan it around and you can try to align it up. If it doesn't match up, the texture is probably too big, and a good way of changing it to match is pressing O. O should change its size so it matches the texture next to it, and you can just line it up. So it's almost seamless, like so. There we go. Now there's another way of doing it, which is quicker, as Forge mentioned. What you can do is instead look to the wall next to it, press the O button, and then press the full stop or period button, and that should automatically do it. So it's all nice and lined up with the other walls. If you do it again, it will misalign it. If you press O and full stop again, it will misalign. So do it one more time, it lines back up. When sectors are cut off from each other and you're making new sectors, you can actually change change the texture. And Dina wants me to explain categories, so I shall do that. So, there is a category system, but it's not complete yet. In the version that you guys will have, it doesn't have all the textures in categories, but you can look at categories. If you press T
you'll come to this window. This will have categorized things into groups like enemies, as it says here, exactly as it says here. Press any of the corresponding letters to the A, B, C, D, E to correspond to each group. And you can go and pick any of these. So these are all the health and weapon drops and keys for the game. If you want to back out, you can press escape. But we're going to go looking for a texture by pressing G for go to. And we're going to use texture 17915. Press enter. And press enter on it. I've got it black because it's all weird. There we go. I've got it too big. Also, I've got the wrong PAL color. Oh, don't want PAL 12. So you can shrink down the image like using the numpads. And just using pan to move it up and down. So pan again is shift, holding the left mouse button and just moving your mouse about. You'll note you can move your image to suit you. But look, you got a nice view of the outside. How scenic. Now we want to kind of get rid of the carpet here, so I'm just going to copy the ceiling. So look at the ceiling texture and press tab to copy it and just paste it using enter onto the sides. I'll make it a lot easier. There we go. So, windows normally have glass in them. We're going to put a sprite in that looks like glass. To make it easier, just look at the window area and press S. You'll get the vase because that was the last sprite you used. Then we want to press V on it. And then we want to go to G. And we're going to use sprite 22 or texture 22454. That's 22454. And you'll given this little glass texture here. Click on it, and it's already transparent, which is a lot easier. Unfortunately, it's in rotation mode. As you can see, it's moving with you as you move the camera. We don't want that. So I'm going to teach you how to make a sprite conform or become still. So let's come out of 3D mode, grab the sprite and pull it to the center of the room. Okay, so left click and hold to drag the sprite. I'm going to bring it out so we can see it better. So yeah, moving around with your character, you don't want that. So, look at the sprite, hold the lock button and press R. Now, it is a still. It doesn't move. You can also press R again, and it will be on the floor, and R again, and it will go back to the normal movement. But R for rotate will make it still. There is also blocking. You can make a sprite blockable or unblockable by pressing B. B for block. You'll see at the bottom left of your screen it says blocking off or blocking on. If I turn it off, I can just move through the object. If I turn it on, I can't. It blocks me. So B for blocking. Now we're going to go and place the glass pane where it should be, not floating magically in the middle of this room. We're going to go into 2D mode, and you'll notice that the sprite now has a line instead of just being a little dot. This denotes how big that sprite is. From here, you can manipulate it just like you can do in 3D mode. So like I said before, you can use the num keys to make it big or small. But you can also do that here. You can at least for widening anyway. You'll notice that the sprite will become wider or smaller if I press 4 or 6. 4 or 6 will make it wider or smaller. You cannot see height in 2D mode, obviously, so I only use it to gauge how wide it is. So we're going to manipulate it here to be as wide as this sector. We're also going to make the grid size smaller, and we're going to place it in the center here, like so. There we go. If it's too wide or too small, again, you can press 8 or 2 to make it taller or smaller. Just because it's a window, though, it can cut through and it'll be fine. If you have a window texture and it's not transparent, if you put your crosshair on it and press T, it will make it transparent. There are different transparencies. So press T again will make it like this, and then T again will put it back to normal. So there are two versions of transparency. There is a way to blend it, but that's much more advanced. We're not going to do that today. But yes, you can even make this vase transparent. Ooh, it's ghostly vase now. Ooh. Was it ever there in the first place? Yes. Right. Now, we're going to dress it a little bit. Again, with sprites, it's always good, if you want to give an illusion of a room, it's good to dress the room. So, let's put some curtain rails on here. So we're going to press S on the wall. Now you'll notice that the sprite won't turn out like this, rotational sprite, like you would if you pressed it on the floor, which will be rotational. If you press S on a wall, it will stick to the wall and become a flat image. Again, you can use the numpad to manipulate it and page up and down to make it higher or lower. Okay. But we're going to make these curtains because you don't want people peeping in on you, do you? At night, anyway. So, again, we're going to go look for that. If you recall, you press V, G to look for it, for go to. And for the curtains, the texture is 8667. 8667. Ta-da! You'll come to this blue curtain. Now you'll notice anything with blue in the game means it's palatable. Anything with blue means you can easily change its color. We're going to make it lower by pressing the page down button. And we're going to change its palette. You can change it to whatever color you guys want. Fiddle around, but remember, it's Alt, right Alt, and P. Right Alt P, and then you can just put in a number and make it whatever color you want. You can make it cycloid green. I'm going to make it 12 because I want it white. So, now you have that. Let us put this on the actual window. So back into 2D mode. You'll notice it's a red sprite. I'm not sure why it's a red sprite. Is it because it's got... No, it's because it's got blocking off. It's a red sprite because it's got blocking off. Press B again. It'll become purple if it's blocking. So this sprite will stop me. Press B again. I can walk through. And it will be color-coded for your convenience. You can also do this in 2D mode. So you can look at the sprite, press B, and it will turn purple. This means the sprite is now blocking in-game. B for non-blocking. This is a curtain rail, so it doesn't really matter much. So what we're going to do, we're going to place it on here, on the wall, so it's like so. And of course, we're just going to use 4 and 6 on the numpad just to line it up a bit. There we go. So now we have a curtain. Yay! Make it a little bit darker. But now we have a problem. The room looks flat. I'm going to teach you shading very quickly. Shading is important to give the room atmosphere. So, first things we're going to do, we're going to make the room a bit dark. So we're going to use a scroll or the plus or minus on the numpad, and we're going to make everything a little bit darker. Just a little bit darker. You can't always change things behind this, a sprite. You might end, like you see here, I'm changing the sprite, not the wall. So what you'll have to do is move the sprite out of the way, like I showed you before. And then you can change the shading behind it. You'll notice another problem. If you're shading a room, you'll notice that any other sprite that isn't attached will not change. You have to make sure that you change that too. So the child sector won't change with the sector around it because it's separated. Now we're going to make it look like there's light coming out of this window. I always find this part fun. So, the curtain gap is not that wide, so we're going to start in the middle here. I want you to press, I want you to add in some vertices on this red line, just 2 of them. Okay. And on the table here, we're going to also add the vertices, but we're going to make it a little bit wider, so a little bit further out, like so. You'll know in 3D mode it hasn't changed anything. Now we're going to connect these. So before, press space, drag it to the vertices on the table. I keep calling them vertices. Vertex on the table. Press enter. Press space, sorry. So space on here and space on here. You've created a white line. Do it again on the other side. They'll turn red. That's good. Don't leave it white. White is bad. Again, this has done nothing. But if you look on the floor and change its shading and make it brighter, it will look like there's light coming from it. And you will adjust it after you put the curtain back, but yes. You'll notice that wherever the vertex has been placed, it's caused a separation. So we're going to make this brighter. And since the light is touching the table, we're also going to make that brighter. So you can put a sector within a sector, which is technically what this is as well, what this cone is. But we're also going to do it here. So on one of the vertexes, press space. We're going to make another cone shape, just like this, a little bit wider. And you'll notice you'll have this lovely cone shape. And on the table, make it brighter. There, it looks like light is touching the table. Yay! Okay, now we're going to put the curtain back. And you'll see what I mean once I've done that. It's not quite aligned, but you can adjust that yourself. If you press G to make the grid smaller, you can do finer adjustments with a smaller grid. So it actually fits. There we go. That looks a lot better. So now that looks like there's light coming from the window. I suggest you do that on the ceiling as well. There we go. There we go. When you've connected these lines, I connected these 2 lines, this here becomes its own sector. And this here now is its own sector. If you take that away, it will disappear. I will teach you how to delete sectors as well, but first of all, we're creating sectors, so. These are separate. These are their own sectors now. If you try to merge them, they will disappear. Like so. And now it's connected itself. We don't want that, because that looks wrong. Wrong button. So I'm going to undo that. So just for a little bit of extra shading, we're going to add a shadow to the table. So press space on the back of the vertex, make a little oblong, connect it, and it would have made its own sector, and then just make it darker. And you have a little shadow. I've made it too big, but it's fine. This is just a practice thing. If you have a child sector and you've put another child in that sector, keep it inside. Don't let it break out. Breaking out means bugs. Same with the white. Don't let things do this. It causes funny issues like that. Yeah, no. Game does not like that at all. Whee. Once you have the child sectoring down, you can make a lot of things. You can make anything. But also you'll know that these are separate sectors if you press up and down. Whee! Fix that. Like
Okay,
so.
now I've run into a small issue.
Okay.
For some reason, I can't seem to adjust sector lighting any further than, say, negative 15 in order to make it brighter. Anything higher than that, it just remains the same value.
That's as high as that will go. That's fine. Visually, it won't go any higher because that's as bright as the texture can be.
Oh,
But number-wise, it will go higher on the screen, but it won't look higher.
that's a visibility thing.
Hmm.
When you get all the way out to 127, positive or negative, that's max. The game has a built-in visibility where the farther away you get from it, it starts putting the fog of war over it. So you can't see it after a certain point of time. If you make it super, super, super bright, like negative 127, you can see the thing from all the way across the map.
But if you notice, if I go to this side of the room, the other side's getting darker. But if I make it really bright, it will be visible no matter what I do. Whereas this side has a darkness to it, that one is constantly visible. And even if I keep going higher, that's as bright as that image will go. As that text will go.
Yeah, that just basically it just is how far away you can get and how far you can still see it.
Now you want to test your room. Now, first things first, put your mouse where you want your characters to start, or put your little arrow, and then press scroll lock. You'll notice that now there is a orange triangle. This is where your character will start in the game. Okay? Now, from here, if you want to see what it looks like in game, press escape, and then T for test. Press T for test, the game should start up, press enter to start the game, and you should come to the character select screen once the game loads up. And you'll come to the neat character select screen. Okay, so you select whichever character you want. I'm gonna go with Rusty. And you'll be in your room. This way you can actually look around your room and see if the table's too high, too low. You can test things out, check the lighting, make sure it's working. And of course, you can go back to mapping and readjust everything. If you want to go into third person perspective, you press F7. Yeah, this table's far too high and far too big. Whoops. From the test part, if you want to back out to map, just quit game. Press yes. It will automatically quit the game, put you back in Mapster, and do an autosave. Now from here, you can adjust the size of your tables, you can add more sprites to make it look like it's an actual room. So I can add a door, so I'm going to press S, I'm going to look for a door. Wrong. Press V, go to. For a door, I suggest 8006, that is 8006. You come to this nice wooden door. And just line it up so it actually looks like it's part of the scenery. Now you have a door. Now it looks like a room. A room with one huge table and a window. That is the basics of creating things. Let me just quickly show you how to delete things. For example, if you make a sector, and you didn't mean to make this, so you make an island sector inside, and you have this big hulking brick wall, and you didn't mean to make it. First of all, to get rid of it, we're going to make it a child sector. So we're going to hold left Alt S. I'll make it red. And you'll see it's disappeared, but it's not gone. And it would be a problem if you keep it this way, because it will not cohere to everything else in the rooms, as you can see. So, to get rid of it, we're going to join it to the room that already exists. So you want to press J on the existing place that you want to keep to join, and then press J on the sector. It will delete it completely. Or join it. Technically not deleting, but merge it. And now that is actually gone. You can do this for the table as well. You can do this to anything, usually. So if I want to get rid of this little light texture I've created, or this sector to make the illusion of light, press J on the table, J on the sector, and now it's gone. Now there are other ways of deleting things. If you've accidentally made a sector outside in the void, and there's now a random sector in the void, and you can't get rid of it. You can't just join all the sectors and it will cause an error. So you can't just do this and this, because now I have one error. Map is then corrupted. You don't want to do that. So I'm undoing it, so it's now again a sector. So if it's in the void and white, just hold right control and del, and it's gone. You can do that with this. I will show you an example. So, but now that room is gone, and all I'm left with is a table and a very odd room. Not something you want to do, though. So we'll put it back. You can't press delete, and if you press delete, if you press right control and delete on a child sector, it will make it an island sector. It will become solid again. Before I leave, you can save your game, and you can quit by pressing escape and Q to quit. I'm going to do so. Yes. It'll tell you to save changes. You can press yes or no. I'm going to put no because I don't need to. But if you're ever stuck and you want to learn more advanced things on your own, you can go to the info suite. I shall put this in. I'm going to put this in the stream chat. But this is where I learned. I had to self-teach myself just by reading all this and then asking for help via the mapping chat, or by asking the guys in dev chats. But this will give you all the basics that I've explained to you and more.
Nice.
And also there is also the reference page. So build keys. Build keys will give you everything, all the buttons, and all the extra buttons that you will need. Like in 3D mode, 2D mode, and for drawing to room. Hopefully, this makes build a little less scary and makes you want to explore it more. There are a couple of videos on YouTube. They're quite old, but they have been quite useful. I can't recommend which ones because I didn't save them. But again, if you do ever need help or advice on something, you can always ask me or Forge or Sang. And if you ever get to the point where you're trying to do true room over room, that's Mickey's department. He's the true room over room person, as far as I know. He knows how to do it ridiculously well. He did the pagoda map, so, and that's all Tror, so. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Fair enough.